Hello and happy Monday. Welcome back to Unleashing Happiness. This is the series that I give you some mindset motivation to start your week. And to be perfectly honest, it is the mindset motivation for me to start my week as well. I have actually spent this last week with a cold. You may hear it in my voice today. And while I'm definitely getting a lot better, I have noticed that I'm at the end part where I have this horrific cough, and it is definitely taking its toll on my voice and my chest. So if you notice a difference in my voice or some cracking, that is why I'm just at the tail end of this cold. And while I feel substantially better compared to how I felt last week, I actually think I sound a lot worse now. For today's episode, I feel like I'm going a bit back to my roots. If you're new here, if you're not familiar with my story, I actually began this whole journey a few years ago by stumbling onto the Secret documentary on, I'm sure it was like Netflix or something. And I had always kind of had these feelings that there was more to life than what we understood, and that we had a bit more control with kind of our thoughts. I had noticed some guru type teachers and celebrities who were very successful definitely talking about the power of mindset and the way that you can use your mindset to really steer your life in the direction that you'd like to steer it. So I watched The Secret, and then I bought the book, and I started buying multiple other books from other teachers. And within that process, I fell upon Neville Goddard, literally on accident. And I really resonated with Neville Goddard. At first, he did not make any sense to me. I thought I was reading like a different language. And so I kept reading though, because I was just very drawn to what he was teaching. And the parts that made sense made a lot of sense. And so I ended up joining the Reddit community for Neville Goddard and became very active in that community and moderated that channel for quite a while. And a couple of years ago, I hit a breaking point. Actually, I think it may have been last year. I hit a breaking point with that community that I just said, I can't keep doing this anymore. So it was really affecting me in ways that I did not enjoy. So I got horrific messages from people. And it was just very overwhelming. So you have to take in a lot of that energy. And I just was not in a position to do that in a great way. I also did not like what it was doing to me as a person. I felt like I was losing some of the empathy that I usually had for humans as a whole, because you're reading these kind of messages through a screen. There's no real person there, right? Everybody has their persona, that's their Reddit handle. And so I wasn't connecting with people the way that I wanted to. And I was like, I have to leave this community. I can't continue to do this. And so I left and really doubled down on my learnings and kind of the way that I was focusing and how I was spending my life. And I really started to shape the way that I was using the law of assumption into habit building and making it a much more pragmatic type of process. And I started having immense success in this. So while before I was definitely having successes, I was not having them to the level that I wanted to. And so now the more that I have taken this process and these learnings and said, okay, I'm going to try to actually put this into a system that I can follow and make sure that I am going from point A to point B with making small habit changes to the person that I am, and really paying attention to my identity, the way that I'm talking to myself, the way I'm spending my days, and really lean into making this more of a true process. And the more that I do that, the better my success is, the more happy and joyful I feel, the more that my financial situation has improved greatly, the more that my relationships in my life have improved greatly. And I'm really thankful for that, because I feel like I'm starting to figure it out at a much deeper level. And while I still have things that I'm working on, I don't think my journey will actually ever end until I end in this experience, but I am enjoying it a lot more. I'm not frustrated with things. And just like I said, I'm happier, I'm more joyful, I have better successes. I just feel much better overall. And so I'm really thankful for the position that I'm in now. And I did meet some wonderful friends from the Reddit community that I'm still in contact with today. And two of those would be Tim Grimes, who is the author of The Law of Attraction Simplified, plus some other books. And he has a YouTube channel. And then Maggie, who also runs the YouTube channel Neville Goddard, and share some remarkable information. But I saw that they were sharing this information online, and I was like, I kind of want to share this. I feel like I'm talking about it in a little bit of a different way than other folks, and that I could offer some help with the process that I've done to some other people that are out there who maybe are in the same position where it's like, I'm doing this, I'm getting some successes, I'm very happy in some areas of my life, but in other areas, I just want to see some more improvement. I want to be more energized. I want to enjoy this life that I'm leading a lot more than I currently am. And so I started the podcast. I have a YouTube channel, just kind of sharing content as often and as many places as I can. And while I love all of the channels, the podcast is probably my favorite to do. I'm not sure why. It might be because I just really love to talk. And so this gives me kind of an outlet to do some longer form. It's a little bit easier editing for me, to be honest, than a video is. But I just really enjoy the process. I enjoy sharing this. And that's why I wanted to keep up on doing a Monday series. I had just finished a 10-week series with kind of like tips on how to change your life each week and things that you could work on, like a morning routine, evening routine, etc. And I didn't want to stop doing this secondary podcast episode and doing one on Monday. And so I was like, having some like motivation to start your week and really kick it off with like the correct kind of mindset and some things to think about would be phenomenal for me. And so I wanted to share it out with the audience. And so that's how we ended up where we are now. And like I said, tonight I'm going a bit back to my roots, which is Neville Goddard. And I'm going to be reading from his lecture, Time to Act. It is from the I Am is the Way 1966 lectures. And according to this, he gave this on February 1st, 1966. So here's a piece from that lecture. The message was time to act. That's my message tonight. Many of us think we have radically broken with old habits of thought and systems of belief. And yet we find that these old things that we thought we left behind still determine our conduct. We haven't left them behind at all. Action tests belief. We say, I believe. That's a statement I use here all the time, and I mean it literally. Imagining creates reality. I firmly believe. I do not believe that any other cause or force will be discovered in the world. That these unseen imaginal acts are meant in Hebrews when we are told, and things that are seen are made out of things which do not appear. No one sees the unseen imaginal act, yet they are causative. They are producing the phenomena of life. I have friends of mine who would say, oh, I believe that, and they'll repeat it day after day. But they never live by it, ever. Imagining creates reality. The belief that is not strong enough to affect action can hardly be more than half belief. And it is always possible to use action to test the force of belief. If I suddenly heard a voice and you heard it, fire, and it seemed to be coming from the only exit in this place, there isn't one person present who would not make his exit to that door. We would respond to that. It's part of our training, and that's a danger signal. And when we are told it's a fire, some would even stampede trying to get there first. But nevertheless, we would respond to it. But now, do we really live by the statement, imagining creates reality? To the point when whether we are on the subway, whether we are walking the street, whether we are at home, and whether it's the morning's mail as we received it, at that very moment when action is called for to resolve a problem, do we act? And by act, I mean not going to the telephone and calling or writing a letter. I mean the imaginal act. Do we at that moment act as we would act when someone screams, fire? Is it automatic that imagining creates reality with us? For that was the message I was given. Time to act. Neville then goes on to talk about being too busy and waiting for an opportune time to use your imagination to kind of do the things that I've taught in this podcast. Make sure that you are emotionally connected to the way that you're behaving, that you have the tools to calm yourself down. And then the more that you do this, the more that you're able to actually catch yourself in those moments, bring yourself back, and make sure that you are using the tools that you believe in to frame the way that you want to perceive whatever is happening. And really lean into a belief that your imaginal activity can actually change the perceptions of the life that you're living. And for some people maybe who have not kind of heard this or are not followers of Neville Goddard, that can be a lot to take in at once. I remember when I first heard it, I was like, that makes no sense. What are you talking about? Until I started to kind of look back on my own life, the life that I was currently living, the way that certain people were treating me, and kind of the way that my mind worked. And I was able to connect some dots of like, holy cow, my mindset did affect this. My perception of this is based on how I feel right now. And that's a huge part of this piece that's perception. Because when you really think about it, you are always assigning the meaning to something. So your perception is your truth. Whatever your perception is of an event, that's your truth. But that perception can actually be altered, either by yourself or by somebody giving you more information. And so what if you are able to learn how to decide honestly on your own perception and really lean into your own internal beliefs and the way that you're feeling about something to affect the external conditions that you're getting in life. And for me, I had this moment where I realized that's prayer. That is turning to God in prayer, is by the way that I'm feeling internally. And I want to make sure that I also point out while I'm talking about this, that for me, a lot of times we're presented with things that are the answer to these prayers, right? But they're the answer that are within our current belief system. Like right now, I have a cold. I was not feeling so great. I may be turning to wanting to feel healthy. I'm really leaning into a prayer for health. And then I open my cabinet and a medication falls out. And this is actually something that happened. So I, opened the cabinet where we keep our medication, and one fell out, and it was Mucinex D. And so I took that and I was like, okay, I'll just take this. I felt amazing when I took that. And I think it really helped kind of like clear some stuff up for me. And so I was like, wow, that is the answer to my prayer. And this is how I feel. Let's say that you are struggling with a mental illness or just feeling very down, and you are praying for relief from that. And then you are presented maybe kind of repeatedly with the option for this specific kind of therapy in your area. And that to me is the answer to your prayer. You are naturally coming to this possibility for an action, like a physical action. In this lecture, Neville is talking about the mental action that you're taking, kind of the emotional feeling action that you're taking. But I'm talking about a physical action to say, I'm being presented with this that could help me, and I feel like I should go for it. I don't feel like people should not go to doctors, not take medication, and not see therapists. When any of these teachers talk about the mental ability to heal yourself, I firmly believe in that. I believe that there are things that we can do with our minds that are well beyond what we even understand that we're capable of. But sometimes our beliefs are going to lead us to something else. And that could be a medication, a therapist, adding like even yoga to your day, whatever it is. But you really need to start trusting yourself when these things come up to you and not leaning on this like, well, I don't have to do anything. I just need to double down on my personal belief and my imaginal activity. And I say this because I saw this a lot in the Neville Reddit community, where either people would talk about an ailment that they had, an illness that they had, mental illness that they were struggling with, or even as far as like a borderline, sometimes not even borderline, abusive relationship. And the amount of comments that people would tell them, no, you just need to rely on your imagination. Don't go to the doctor. Don't seek, getting out of this relationship. It was mind-boggling to me, and it was really upsetting to me because this is not the information that should be given out. And the people that are online, behind a computer screen that you don't know who they are and you don't truly know what their intentions are not the ones that you should be listening to for this type of advice. And to be fairness, maybe I'm not the one that you want to listen to for advice. You need to kind of determine, like, is Cecilia resonating with me? Do I understand what she's saying? Do I feel like this is leading me in the direction that I need to be led? But what it comes down to is learning how to have faith and trust in yourself. It's not about having to try harder to either change somebody or have them stop being emotionally or mentally or even physically abusive towards you, or to not seek care because you realize that you're sick, and that can be a physical ailment or a mental ailment. And on that note, I probably have not done my disclaimer in the podcast for a while. I am not a licensed therapist. I am sharing information that has helped me in my life journey, but I am definitely not a licensed therapist. And so I hope that you find the information in this podcast helpful for you on your journey as you kind of figure stuff out for yourself. But at the same time, if you are definitely struggling, if you feel like you're going to be a harm to yourself or to others, I highly encourage you to reach out to a therapist in your local area. So now I do want to go back to the lecture and reading parts of that. So at this point, Neville is talking about being too busy and like waiting for the opportune time. And I think I fell into this a lot as well, where something would happen and I would almost like in my mind say I was going to wait until right before bedtime and then I would address it. And what he's saying here is that you're never too busy to simply act if you believe in the reality of that unseen imaginal act. All things are possible to God, for we are told by one of the truly great mystics of all time, God only acts and is in existing beings or men. And that's from William Blake. Neville continues, if I act, I have met the test. If I postpone it and I don't act, I go around repeating like a parrot, imagining creates reality. And you're doing everything in the world but imagining the solution, but everything in the world. So think about that for a minute when you're going about your day. You can be caught in this like parroting to yourself, like, yes, I believe in positive affirmations. Yes, I believe that I'm able to affect my outer world by working on my inner self, but then you don't actually do anything with it. You're not actually doing the processes. You're not working on your internal self. You're not changing truly who you are, the habits that you hold. You're not actually doing it. You're just parroting it over and over and over. And that creates the frustrating cycle of like, why is this not working? I just keep saying this, but your true belief is different. Your belief can be seen in the actions that you take. And this is one of the things that I've talked about before, is that your natural habits are going to be very reflective of whatever state you're in. So when Neville talks about a state, it's like your identity. And I actually have heard some more modern day gurus talk about state as well. Tony Robbins actually talks about state quite a bit too. But the natural things that you do without even realizing it, the habits you just fall into, are going to show you what state you're in. Think about the way you wake up in the morning, especially that very first thought that you have. Now try for the next week, 2 weeks, ideally 30 days, but it definitely won't take 30 days, to spend each morning with the first thought that you have that today is going to be an amazing day, or today is an amazing day. I'm thankful that I woke up. Even if at first you don't believe it and you're like, this is ridiculous, I cannot believe Cecilia has me doing this nonsense, keep doing it. Just every day wake up. Don't worry about what you're doing right or wrong. Don't worry about the feelings that you're conjuring up. Just get up each day and do it. And then there's definitely other things that you can do during your day to sustain that. But having that first thought in the morning, you can start to slowly shift the state that you're in. And you'll start to pick up on things where you're like, whoa, little things are starting to go better for me. I'm starting to notice them. And it could be something that was there all along, but your perception was not allowing you to literally even see it because of the state that you were dwelling in. So I've skipped ahead a little bit, but I want to continue reading from Neville Goddard's lecture. So I ask you not to repeat like a parrot, imagining creates reality. Act. Do something about it. It's entirely up to us. If we don't act upon it, we can hear this. And what I know is you can forget it just as though you had never heard it and go elsewhere. And what I mean by time to act is that imagining does create reality. That all you behold, though it appears without, it is within, in your wonderful human imagination, and that is God himself. So tonight, act between here and your departure. If you know someone that you could really lift up, Do it. And when he was asked, how often must I do it? 70 times 7. Do it until in your own heart you're satisfied. Just do it. But it will come back again. Then do it again. How often must I forgive him when he sins against me? 70 times 7. Until the eye is fixed and you can't move from one to the other, you only see what you want to see. When it becomes so fixed, you only see what you want to see, then it's 70 times 7. And so no matter what rumor I hear after I've heard what I want to hear, I hear nothing else. I heard it, I am still hearing it, and I will continue to hear it until what I have heard becomes objectified within my world. This is Neville talking about persistence. So I kind of jumped around a little bit in the lecture, and I want to make sure that I'm making sense. He's saying that if you have somebody or anything that you want to have changed and reflected in your external world, that's what it means to persist. You continue to go within to change your attitude and your view against that. And actually, this is something that Emmett Fox talks about as well. He says, take any problem that you have, any issue you have in your world right now, and start to work on changing your perception of it. Change the way that you see it. See more of the solution end instead of continuing to dwell in the problem. And do this for 30 days and see what changes you see in your life. And that is what I am recommending to you as we close out today's episode, is to take an issue or a problem in your life that you have now and start working to change the way that you're viewing it. Change the inner conversations that you have about it. Change the way that you see it. And I'm not talking about going to a toxic positivity type of issue where it's like, I only see sunshine and rainbows, but truly you don't. And you're just kind of causing yourself more issues. It is taking small changes, small habit changes around this issue and just starting to consider a better outcome. And I found this was a really easy way to do this. So change the way that you're starting your morning and the way that you're affecting your day. And then really start to change the way that you're viewing this problem. So instead of just dwelling constantly over the problem, reliving it over and over in your head, maybe having mental arguments about it, what are some small changes that you could do to change the way that you're looking at that, that's not forcing yourself to have a toxic positivity type of issue and causing yourself more strife and, it's a very heavy feeling when you're trying to force a change, because it's not about making a mind battlefield. And I wish that I could put you in my head to understand the subtle difference that it is when you just start to say, you know what, I'm going to put some belief into this and I'm going to test it out and I'm going to try it, but I'm not going to make myself crazy over it. I'm going to pick some very small things. So maybe you start with the inner conversation and you say, if I'm having issues in a relationship, instead of on my drive having a mental argument with somebody, I'm going to have a very kind conversation with that same person. So it's very small, tiny shifts in the way that you're thinking and addressing any kind of issue that's in your life. And just pick one and test it. I mean, honestly, it won't take you 30 days if you can change it to start to see the differences. But, using 30 days as kind of like a self-experiment is fantastic. So I hope that you liked this episode. If there are questions that you have, please feel free to email me, unleashinghappiness@ceciliahendricks.com. And I hope you have an absolutely beautiful week.